Good morning. Hope you have gone through the notes of a ball poem and everything is clear regarding the lesson. And now today, let us move on to Unit 4 from the diary of Anne Frank. Since it's a diary, it's written by Anne Frank herself. Now, the diary of Anne Frank became famous because it is one of the most famous narratives of the Holocaust. So it is a description about how people suffered under Holocaust. And what is Holocaust? Holocaust is known by another name, that is the Shoah, which was the World War II genocide of European Jews. So during the time of World War II, there was a massive killing of the European Jews. That is genocide. Genocide is nothing but the murder of all the people of a particular race. All the people should be banished or wiped out of the face of the world. So that is genocide. And in this case, it was the Jews that lived in Europe. And back to Holocaust. More about that. Between 1941 and 45, the Nazis murdered some 6 million Jews. That comes around 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population. So they were on the lookout for Jews. They considered them as a threat for their race, which they considered to be the superior race, the descendants of the Aryan race. And so they considered the Jews as a threat to their racial supremacy. And that was one of the reasons why they went on hunting down the Jews of Europe. And so Holocaust referred to the killing of large number of Jews, especially the European Jews. And back to the diary of Anne Frank. It was written from the perspective of a normal adolescent living under the most abnormal circumstances. So this diary entry is written from the point of view of a small child, a girl of your age. And hence, it became so popular because when a child writes an account, we get an unadulterated account. Nothing would be added and nothing would be taken away from it. And so it is an adulterated milk and adulterated things, you know what it is. So this is a true account of how Holocaust was, how a small child felt under that. And hence, because of this very reason, more than 25 million copies were sold, and it was translated into more than 70 languages. So that's all the introductory part about the diary. And now, the lesson. From the diary of Anne Frank. Before you read, there's an introduction regarding the diary. Annalise Mary Anne Frank, who lived from 12 June 1929 to sometime between the months February and March of the year 1945. The actual date is not known because she met with her death sometime in between February and March when she was in the concentration camps. So, she was a German-born Jewish girl who wrote while in hiding with her family and 4 friends in Amsterdam during the German occupation of Netherlands in World War II. So she was hiding herself along with her family and 4 of her friends in a place called Amsterdam, which is the capital of Netherlands. So Germans had already occupied Netherlands and they were hiding in the capital city. It was during the time of World War II. Her family had moved to Amsterdam after the Nazis gained power in Germany, but were trapped when the Nazi occupation extended into the Netherlands. So Nazis were establishing their authority in the neighboring countries, and Netherlands being the neighboring country to Germany, they slowly established their authority in that particular place, and so they had to move from there, from Germany to Amsterdam. As persecutions against the Jewish population increased, persecutions is ill treatment or having hostility against a particular race or a religion or something like that. So as persecutions against the Jewish population increased, the family went into hiding in July 1942 in hidden rooms in her father Otto Frank's office buildings. So once the ill treatment crossed the boundaries or went out of control, they had to force themselves into hiding into this Otto Frank, that is Anne's father's office. They started hiding there in a particular room. After 2 years in hiding, the group was betrayed and transported to the concentration camp system, where Anne died of typhus in Bergen-Belsen within days of her sister Margaret Frank. So they hid themselves in that office room for nearly 2 years, and then somebody betrayed them. Somebody gave information that such a family is hiding there, and they were betrayed. They were found out by the Nazis and was sent to the concentration camps where they underwent severe torture and harsh circumstances. And so because of the ill treatment and the severe conditions prevailed in the concentration camps, people died out of this disease. Typhus was common there, and she died of that very soon after the death of Margaret Frank, her sister. Her father, Otto, the only survivor of the group, returned to Amsterdam after the war ended to find that her diary had been saved. So only survivor of the family was her father, and he returned back and found Anne's diary. Convinced that it was a unique record, he took action to have it published in English under the name The Diary of a Young Girl. So he wanted the world to know about this the severe rule of the Nazis, and so he decided to get this account of his daughter published. The diary was given to Anne Frank for her 13th birthday and chronicles the events of her life from 12 June 1942 until its final entry of 1st August 1944. So this was a birthday gift to Anne Frank on her 13th birthday, and he started writing in this diary starting from 12th June 1942. It was eventually translated from its original Dutch into many languages and became one of the world's most widely read books. There have also been several films, television and theatrical productions, and even an opera. Opera is a musical drama based on the diary, described as a work of a mature and insightful mind. The diary provides an intimate examination of daily life under Nazi occupation. Anne Frank has become one of the most renowned and discussed of the Holocaust victims. And then you get a task here. You get different terms that denotes the written expression of a personal experience, written form of a personal experience of various people, and it comes under the terms journal, diary, log, and memoir. And the descriptions are given on the right-hand side in a jumble way. You need to go through the descriptions and decide which one suits the given terms. And you are asked to refer to the dictionary if you feel like. And the second task, here you get a few entries. All four are related to personal experiences, and you are to decide which term would suit to these entries. And that is an assignment for you. You may be ready with the task by the next class. Now to the lesson. Writing in a diary is a really strange experience for someone like me. Not only because I have never written anything before, but also because it seems to me that later on, neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old school girl. So she's telling that this writing business is totally a strange experience. This is the first time she's attempting such a task. She had never written before, and it also seems that no one would be interested in knowing what a 13-year-old girl has written in this diary. And not even Anne herself would be willing to go through it once more. But this time, that particular day, she decided to write just because of one reason. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to care about that. I feel like writing, and I have an even greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. So today I have decided to write these things down in the diary because my mind is overburdened with so many thoughts. I just want to put it down somewhere. I just want to write it down so that I would be relieved. Get the things off my chest so that I would feel better. Paper has more patience than people. I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless, wondering whether to stay in or go out. I finally stayed where I was, brooding. Yes, paper does have more patience. And since I am not planning to let anyone else read this stiff-backed notebook, grandly referred to as a diary, unless I should ever find a real friend, it probably won't make a bit of difference. So she also recollects that a few days back she was sitting a bit dull and listless. Listless is having no energy, having no enthusiasm. She felt, the condition of a girl who would be locked down in a house. And so she was really bored, and that too living under the constant fear of being killed by the Nazis. So it was really troublesome. And so she was thinking about her own condition and felt a bit bored. And then this thought suddenly came to her mind. So paper has more patience than people. So people will be often busy with so many activities, and so they would rarely get any time to listen to children. So it is better to share your time with paper rather than spending your time with people, because paper has more patience than people. So that is why she decided to write things down. And she also says that she decided not to share her thoughts that has been entered in this book with anyone unless she finds a very faithful friend. Now I'm back to the point that prompted me to keep her diary in the first place. So she is coming to the real point which made her write entries in her diary. I don't have a friend. That is a basic reason which prompted me to make entries in a diary. Let me put it more clearly. Since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world, so I just want to make this point that I don't have a friend. So no one would be willing to believe that a 13-year-old girl is totally alone in this world. So I'm going to make this clear. And I'm not alone in this world. I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. No, on the surface, I seem to have everything except my one true friend. All I think about when I am with friends is having a good time. I can bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everyday things. We don't seem to be able to get any closer, and that is a problem. Maybe it's my fault that we don't confide in each other. In any case, that is just how things are, and unfortunately, they are not liable to change. This is why I have started diary. So she says that she is a 13-year-old girl. She has a comfortable life. Outwardly, she looks very satisfied, a very comfortable life, leading a very comfortable life. But the only fault is that she doesn't have anyone to share her worries with. And so she says she has friends, but when they come together, they share a good time. They see that everything is done in a happy way, but she rarely finds anyone. She doesn't have a true friend with whom she can share all her worries. And so that is why she thought of writing things down in a diary entry. To enhance the image of this long-awaited friend in my imagination, I don't want to jot down the facts in this diary the way most people would do. But I want the diary to be my friend, and I am going to call this friend Kitty. So this long-awaited friend, this friend she wanted to have badly, and so this doesn't mean that she is going to put down everything that happens in her life one by one in a diary, but she's going to share her innermost thoughts that seem to worry her a lot, and she is going to call this book Kitty. Now to the questions here. What makes writing in a diary a strange experience for Anne Frank? Why does she term the writing in a diary as a strange experience? First of all, she's having this experience for the first time. That is, for the first time she's writing something. And then the second reason is nobody would be interested in learning or going through what a 13-year-old girl had written. So 2 points for that. Next question, why does Anne want to keep a diary? The basic reason is she doesn't have a true friend. Next one is she wants to share her innermost secrets to someone. So she thought of keeping the diary and saying that the expression that paper has more patience than people. Now the third one, why did Anne think she could confide more in her diary than in paper? Just as I mentioned before, paper has more patience than people. Now to the remaining part of the lesson. Since no one would understand a word of my stories to Kitty if I were to plunge right in, I'd better provide a brief sketch of my life as much as I dislike doing so. So she's telling that if she straight away move on to her thoughts, start writing whatever thoughts that she has in her mind, people won't understand what she's writing about. So she's telling that though she hates this business of writing a brief sketch about her family, she has to do it because it is essential to make her diary entries sensible. Now, my father, the most adorable father I have seen, didn't marry my mother until he was 36 and she was 25. My sister Margaret was born in Frankfurt in Germany in 1926. I was born on 12th June 1929. I lived in Frankfurt until I was 4. My father emigrated to Holland in 1933. My mother, Edith Hollander Frank, went with him to Holland in September, while Margaret and I were sent to Aachen to stay with our grandmother. Margaret went to Holland in December, and I followed in February when I was plunked down on the table as a birthday present for Margaret. So she talks about her family. She says she considers her father as the most adorable father she had ever seen. And he married her mother at the age of 36, and her mother was 25. And soon Margaret and Anne Frank was born to them, and very soon his father just emigrated to Holland, followed by his mother, her mother, and then following them, Margaret and Anne Frank joined them. And so it is told that Anne Frank met her sister at Holland, and it was actually on her birthday, and so she terms herself as a birthday gift for her sister. Her elder sister would be left alone, no one to play with, so most probably she would have been more happier to meet her sister. And I started right away at the Montessori nursery school. I stayed there until I was 6, at which time I started in the first form. In the sixth form, my teacher was Mrs. Cooperus, the headmistress. At the end of the year, we were both in tears as we said a heartbreaking farewell. So in Holland, she joined the Montessori nursery school, and very soon she was promoted to first standard, and till the sixth standard she was there. And Mrs. Cooperus, the headmistress herself, was her teacher there. And they have both had a very close relationship, and it was really painful to get separated from Mrs. Cooperus when she finished her sixth form. In the summer of 1941, Grandma fell ill and had to have an operation. So my birthday passed with little celebration. So in 1941, her grandmother fell ill and she was to have an operation. And so when the month came, the birthday celebrations went without any, her birthday, Anne Frank's birthday, went without any celebrations. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. This birthday celebration in 1942 was intended to make up for the other, and Grandma's candle was lit with the rest. So the next year, Grandma died, and she says that how close Grandma was to her heart, and she's often thought of her and still loves her. And the next year's birthday celebration was done in a very grand manner, and just to remember Grandma, her candle was also lit along with the remaining family members. The four of us are still doing well. Who all are the four of us? Father, Otto Frank, Mother Edith, then the two sisters. So everything is fine with them, and brings me to the present date of 20th June 1942. So that is why I am here. This is all about me, and it is from this date that Anne starts writing her diary. Now, certain questions based on that. Why does Anne provide a brief sketch of her life? Just to make her diary entries sensible, to make it in a comprehensive way, so that they can connect the events in the mentioned in the diary entry. Then what tells you that Anne loved her grandmother? As she says, she often think of her grandmother, and she herself says that she loved her dearly. Now this is the first entry that Anne Frank makes. Dearest Kitty, our entire class is quaking in its boots. The reason, of course, is the forthcoming meeting in which the teachers decide who will move up to the next form and who will be kept back. So this is about maybe the final examinations are over, and it is time when they wait for the results to come. And so the teachers are going to have a meeting, and they will decide who is to be promoted to the next class. Half the class is making bets. GN and I laugh ourselves silly at the two boys behind us, Cian and Jacques, who have staked their entire holiday savings on their bet. And so she is mentioning the names using the initials. GN and I, maybe that's her friend, laugh at ourselves silly, just make fun of the boys who are sitting behind them. That is CN and Jacques. Again, the initial is used there, CN. And what have they done? They have staked their entire holiday savings on their bet. They have made a bet, and using their entire holiday savings, they have managed to save some money, and they made a bet telling that, oh, okay, I'm not going to pass. If I pass, I will give you my entire savings. You know how you make bets. So from morning to night, this was a conversation between them. You are going to pass. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. So that was a conversation that went between them. Even G's pleading glances and my angry outbursts can't calm them down. So this was the business that was going on right from the morning till evening. And G, that is her friend, just glanced at him in a pathetic manner. Please stop this. And just shouted at them just to make them quiet. But nothing could put them into silence. If you ask me, if you ask my opinion, there are so many dummies that about a quarter of the class should be kept back. But teachers are the most unpredictable creatures on earth. So this is Anne's personal opinion. She says that if someone takes her opinion, almost quarter of the class can be considered as dummies, just good for nothing fellows who should not be promoted to the next class. And she says that teachers are the most unpredictable creatures because you do not know what a teacher might do or what her decision is. Maybe she would promote all the dummies to the other class, whereas the bright ones can be detained in certain cases because of certain reasons. Okay, so I'm not so worried about my girlfriends and myself. We will make it. The only subject I'm not sure about is maths. Anyway, all we can do is wait. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose heart. So, as far as Anne and her girlfriends are concerned, they are sure that they would somehow pass to the they would be promoted to the next class. The only subject she finds tough is maths. And so all they can do is wait till the results are out. And they kept on consoling each other not to lose heart, not to get disappointed. Let us be hopeful. I get along pretty well with all my teachers. There are 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. Mr. Keesing, the old fogey who teaches maths, was annoyed with me for ages because I talked so much. After several warnings, he assigned me extra homework, an essay on the subject, a chatterbox. A chatterbox? What can you write about that? I'd worry about that later, I decided. I jotted down the title in my notebook, tucked it in my bag, and tried to keep quiet. So now she talks about her relationship with the teachers. There are almost 9 of them, and 2 of them are men, and 2 of them are women, and 7 are men. And he focuses her attention on the maths teacher, who is an old-fashioned guy, who's known by the name Mr. Keesing. And she used to get reminders from this maths teacher, Mr. Keesing, as to she would be punished if she is continuing to be talkative in class. And fed up with the talkative nature of Anne, he gave her an extra homework, that is, to write an essay on a chatterbox. A chatterbox is a person who goes on talking and talking without any sense. So she found that is not an easy task, and so she just left it. She noted down in her book and left it there for the time being, and thought of thinking over the topic later. That evening, after I had finished the rest of my homework, the notebook the note about the essay caught my eye. I began thinking about the subject while chewing the tip of my fountain pen. Anyone could ramble on and leave big spaces between the words, but the trick was to come up with convincing arguments to prove the necessity of talking. So, after finishing his regular homework, she just happened to see this note which was attached there, and she started thinking, I should come up with convincing arguments, believable, that makes people believe that, okay, this is sensible, it has sense. And so she started thinking, and she didn't want to make an adjustable work, just like you people do when you are not familiar with the topic for the exam. You just leave plenty of spaces in between words and then somehow make it go on with the same point again and again and somehow cover the required pages. So she didn't want to do that. I thought and suddenly I had an idea. I wrote the 3 pages Mr. Keesing had assigned me and was satisfied. So she had completed, and this is what she wrote. I argued that talking is a student's trait. No student can control herself from talking. It is inborn, it is innate, and it is a student's trait, and that I would do my best to keep it under control. I would try hard to keep myself under control, but that I would never be able to cure myself of the habit, since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and there is not much you can do about inherited traits. I will try hard to keep myself under control, but I don't think that I can completely cure this habit of talking because it is inherited from my mother. I inherited this trait from my mother because she talks as much as I do, if not more. Only that she might talk a bit more than me. Mr. Keesing had a good laugh at my arguments, but when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, he assigned me a second essay. So for the time being, Mr. Keesing enjoyed the joke and he had a good laugh. But when Anne continued to talk in the next class also, he gave her another homework. What is that? This time it was supposed to be on an incorrigible chatterbox. Incorrigible means someone who cannot be corrected. I handed it in, and Mr. Keesing had nothing to complain about for 2 whole lessons. However, during the 3rd lesson, he had finally had enough, and so the next task was incorrigible chatterbox, and that too Anne managed to come up with convincing arguments. So the teacher was satisfied, and he let her alone for the next 2 classes. But very soon teacher became fed up with the nature of Anne, and again another punishment was given this time. However, during the 3rd lesson, he had finally had enough. And Frank, as a punishment for talking in class, write an essay entitled "Quack, quack, quack," said Mistress Chatterbox. So that was a bit insulting to Anne. What is the title? What is the topic? Quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. Quack, quack means that is utterly senseless. So it doesn't have any meaning, and it was slightly provoking. So the class roared, hearing the topic given to Anne. I had to laugh too, though I had nearly exhausted my ingenuity on the topic of chatterboxes. So Anne too couldn't control her laughter. She too laughed, but she was a bit worried about the topic given to her because she had lost her creativity on writing about the topic of chatterboxes. It was time to come up with something else, something original. So this time, if I want to succeed in completing this task given to her, she had to come up with something really original. My friend Sane, who is good at poetry, offered to help me write the essay from beginning to end in verse, and I, jumped for joy. So this was entirely a novel idea which she received from Sane, her classmate, and she was good at writing poetry. And so she agreed to help Anne to write the entire topic on poetry. And so she couldn't control her joy. Mr. Keesing was trying to play a joke on me with this ridiculous subject, but I made sure the joke was on him. So she wanted to retort it in the same way. And so she decided to face it, and she wrote a poem that described a story. I finished my poem, and it was beautiful. It was about a mother duck and a father swan with 3 baby ducklings who were bitten to death by the father because they quacked too much. So obviously, Father Swan is no one other than Mr. Keesing, and the ducklings, one of them was Anne herself. Why were they bitten to death? Because they talked too much. As ducks, they are meant for quacking and nothing else. So as students, they are meant to be talking, and what else to do? And so luckily, Mr. Keesing took the joke the right way. He read the poem to the class, adding his own comments, and to several other classes as well. Since then, I have been allowed to talk and haven't been assigned any extra homework. On the contrary, Mr. Keesing's always making jokes these days. So this way, the serious teacher started cracking jokes, and you can the humor sense of Anne is clearly evident from this incident. Yours, Anne, extracted from the diary of a young girl with slight adaptation. Let us go to the questions too quickly. Why was Mr. Keesing annoyed with Anne? Because of her talking nature. What did he ask her to do? To write an essay on the topic? Chatterbox. How did Anne justify her being a chatterbox in her essay? That is, being a student. It's a student's trait to talk, and she would control herself to the as far as possible, but she's not hopeful that she can be cured of this talkative nature because she had inherited this trait from her mother. Do you think Mr. Keesing was a strict teacher? Strict to a certain extent. You can't say he was entirely a strict teacher. What made Mr. Keesing allow Anne to talk in class? Of course, her humor sense and her convincing arguments about the given topics. Okay, let us stop the class here.